Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug Show. My name's Doug Cunnington, and in this episode, I'm catching up with Mark Morris from Niche Website Builders again. We're going to talk about a new service that they have, which is digital PR, which I think is public relations. Probably
hmm
we'll hear from Mark about that, but it's a sort of a link building and outreach type campaign, and we're going to hear all about it and how you can do it yourself, some of the results that they've seen. And I have kind of a way that I'm looking at this too. So once we describe it, I think you'll hopefully see the same, but it's kind of combining a few different ideas of outreach and link building and putting them together, which I think that's how great ideas sort of synthesize, right? You take a couple great pieces of strategies from here and from some other place, you put them together and you end up with something like way more powerful. So Mark, how's it going today?
Fantastic. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, all very good.
Cool. Well, let's get into it today. This is part of a double episode. So if you missed the other one, you can check it out. And that's about a data analysis that they did on 5,000 websites. And they kind of estimated what it might take to reach $1,000, $5,000, and $10,000 per month in terms of domain rating and the amount of content. So definitely check out that episode if you missed it. And Mark, let's just get into it. So what's the deal with the digital PR service that you guys have?
Yeah, so we've digital PR really is like the holy grail kind of link building. It's like the links, it's about acquiring links from the world's biggest publications, like anything you can imagine. So Forbes, the BBC, MSN, that kind of thing. So, for a long time, until now, like lots of people didn't really think it was for them in terms of the niche website community and for content publishers. And the reason really is why is because when we think of digital PR, we just think it as being really expensive and something that brands do. Because you think of digital PR, you think about it being lots and lots of creative work. They used to go to thousands of pounds of creative work, big campaigns that then, maybe they work, maybe they don't. And as content publishers, we have a limited budget. We don't really like that kind of, unpredictability. But being like such a great way to build links and the highest possible quality links, we really wanted to be able to bring it to content publishers, something that no other agency has done yet. And we just want to be able to offer that to everybody. So we started working out how to figure something out that would be a budget that niche website builders could afford, but still acquire those highest quality links.
Got it. And what kind of results have you seen during the test and trying to figure out how to do this?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, I can't. Every time I talk about it, I can't stop smiling because it just blows me away that the links we can get. It kind of shifts the perspective again on kind of what is news as well, because essentially what we're doing is creating the stories for journalists. So we come up with an idea, an idea, and we'll come into how the different ways that we do that. But like, we come up with an idea and we pitch it out to loads of journalists, essentially, that we think would be interested in that topic. And that might mean that 10, 15, 20 journalists or more pick it up and run with that story. And so I used to be a paper boy when I was a kid, right? And I don't know, this is a long time ago now, right? 30 years ago, probably, maybe, right? And I used to wonder, like, how is it like there's this really obscure story in this one newspaper, but it's also in this newspaper and this newspaper. So this has been happening for a long time, way before the internet, where people were coming up with stories, sending them to journalists, and all the journalists are writing about them at the same time. It's just that we can do it in the digital world now. So essentially, in terms of the results, yeah, I mean, that's what we're getting. We're actually getting links from people like Forbes, people like the BBC, people like Bloomberg, all of these things that you think almost were untouchable, almost out of reach. When we talk about buying age domains in the past, we've talked about the links that you can't buy, the links that your competitors can't get. Well, what we've discovered is actually you can get them, and it's through digital PR.
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've seen this on the other side a little bit. So I have a lot of friends in the like personal finance and financial independence space. Many of them are, course creators or, entrepreneurs in different industries. But many of us go to it's a conference called FinCon, and there's several others where we all hang out and we're all sort of creators. And I started noticing my friends were being featured on like CNBC, Forbes, Entrepreneur, like all these huge
Yeah.
magazines, and they're featured multiple times, sometimes for different stuff. So when we finish this interview, I'm going to talk to one of my good friends, Rachel Richards, and she's called Money Honey on Instagram. So she has been featured on like those places that I mentioned several times. And she's like, I got another mention. So, a couple things happen. Number one, I think other reporters see those stories and then they could reach out to her and then cover her again. So there, you get that aspect,
Yeah.
or they may just link directly. The other part is, Rachel has a network of her friends. So when the reporter comes back to Rachel and says, is there anyone else we should talk to? She may say, oh yeah, I have a friend, Cody Berman, another one of my friends who, is a serial entrepreneur. He's like 25 or 20. He's like 26 maybe. And then he gets covered, and then same thing happens again. So there's sort of like a little network that sort of emerges, and it's like we're all friends with each other. They're doing more interesting things and they're younger than me. So whatever I'm doing is not as interesting as what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to get press coverage, right? But they are, and it's like blowing up over and over again. So there is this little network, and Rachel could probably just reach out to the reporter and say, hey, my friend did a really cool thing. You should maybe think about what they're doing. So yeah, very, very cool. And it makes total sense to me. So, okay.
That's what we found as well, actually, is that the more that you build relationships with these journalists, the more that they know that when we're creating these stories, they're high quality stories that they know they'll be interesting. They look out for your name in the inbox. They look out for your reply. And like you say, they reply, they reach out to you asking for quotes, asking for help, because you've built that relationship and they trust you now, and they know they're going to get what they want, and they know they're going to get it quickly because they're pressed for time all the time. So over time, it's just getting easier and easier and easier to get these links because of the relationships that we're building.
Cool. So before we get into the details, because I want you to explain like how to do this. So if someone is thinking, hey, I want to check this out and I want to test the waters myself, we're going to go through the process. But what I see here, like I mentioned, a combination of several different things. So we have sort of a shotgun skyscraper type campaign, right? Where you're sending out information to a bunch of different websites. But in this case, you're not sending it to various random websites that you've scraped the internet for. You're sending it to people that could actually reach a lot more folks, which are reporters. Which brings me to Haro, Help a Reporter Out, where Haro has reporters asking for sources, and then we try to answer and get a link that way. But you've sort of flipped things around, and you're just going directly to the reporters without them asking anything. You have interesting content that you can share, or a story pitch that will fit in with their industry based on what they cover as a reporter. So you're combining a couple things together where you're just looking at the most effective pieces and how you could reach the most folks, which is like go to a reporter directly. So it's super cool. All right. So how does this work? What do you do?
Yeah. So I guess the first thing to do, I guess there's three ways that we go about getting, three strategies to this. So one is newsjacking or reactive campaigns. So what we do is we'll look at, the team has what we call a media morning. So the first thing they'll do in the morning is they'll get together, look at all of the stories that are in the news today and see how we can kind of put a spin on that story or add some data to that story, which would help us get a link for one of our clients. So this is one of the best ways to get links quickly because it's topical, it's timely, and the journalist is going to write about it straight away and publish it. So the example I always give, because it's easy to understand and straightforward, is when the fuel prices went up. You take a look at Google Trends, you can see that people are searching for electric cars way more, something like 5x times what they were searching before all the fuel prices kind of went up. And you can kind of build a story around that. That's just one data point, of course. Still probably newsworthy and something you can build a story around. But you can see how we can use all sorts of different data sources. So we'll use government data. We'll use like Instagram data. So like, what's the things that are most hashtagged, in the top 10. In the US, people love like competition from state to state. So if you can show the top X number of states and they beat their neighboring state who they don't like, then that kind of always kind of does well. So newsjacking is kind of the first way. The second way is kind of what we call data campaigns, which is something we spend a little bit more time on. So we will go away, we'll come up with a story that's maybe not related to something that's topical that's in the news, but something that still is looking at data in a way that hasn't been looked at before, that will then go and kind of take that to a journalist and show them. And the third one is kind of expert commentary, which is more like the Haro thing that you were referring to, where journalists will approach us, or we use a tool, something like Haro, where we'll just find those hyper-specific pitches or opportunities. The thing that we've actually stopped doing our Haro service now. So we had our Haro service, but we've actually stopped it now because now Haro just fits into this whole bigger digital PR picture. The downside to Haro that we discovered over time was the links were still great generally, although Haro's getting a bit polluted now with kind of like niche sites and stuff. We're going to ruin everything, of course. Mm-hmm. But you don't with Haro, you'd only ever get one link. So you put in the effort. But obviously the journalist is requesting you, and you reply, and if you're lucky, you get a link back. Well, now we're creating the stories, we're sending them out to a lot of journalists. You can expect to get more than one link, multiple links. There was a conference in Brighton, called Brighton SEO, that I went to a couple of months ago, and I was talking to a digital PR person there, and she did a campaign in which she got 15,000 referring domains because it really blew up because it for her client, and she sent it out to a load of journalists, but once those journalists picked it up, then other journalists picked it up, and it just went like literally viral. So obviously we're not promising 15,000 referring domains, but we could get 50, 60, 70 just from one piece of work, potentially, all from like really high authority sites.
Got it. Okay. So with each one of the, you outline like 3 different scenarios. Is there one that tends to work a little better, or does it depend on the industry and the reporters covering it?
Yeah. So reactives is generally where we get kind of a lot of our links, like most of our links, I would say. But that's because we just constantly, you can bang them out. And this is how we've kind of managed to keep the price down a little bit, is that there's no real assets that kind of go with that. We're coming up with some spin on a story that's in the news, writing an email and sending it out to a load of journalists. And there may be some data associated with that. Quite commonly there is, but that's kind of the one. But when you do have the data campaigns, they're the ones that are more likely to go big because they've got an asset to link to. It's probably a more in-depth piece of work. Therefore, it's going to get picked up by kind of more people. So there's pluses and minuses to both. Reactive, you can be quick and fast and get the links quickly. Data campaigns have got more opportunity to go really big. Expert commentary is the nice to haves, really. You'll pick them off one at a time as you get the chance to.
Okay, let's focus on the first two, since it's a little bit different than Haro and maybe a little more specific. And when you send the email pitch, what do you put in there? Like, are you pitching a whole story? Is it just like a headline, a couple bullet points? And can you give an example, like a real example from a client or an experiment that you guys were running before you rolled out this service?
Yeah. So I guess I've forgotten what the question was now already.
That's all right.
Completely blown me.
So can you give, basically, I want to see like an example of like, can you give, and you could make one up. It'd be great if you can use a real one. And then what do you actually put in the email? So like,
oh, that's right.
How do you pitch this exactly?
Yeah. So the emails, we generally still write 500, 600, 700 words. So, and when we try and write it in the style of an article, so that it's really, really easy for the journalist to pick up because they're busy people. They want to be able to get stuff to print like as quick as possible. So it's not just a brief piece, right? Generally, we've actually kind of taken the time to write something. Sometimes it can be a lot shorter, right? Mm-hmm. But but generally, we're trying to make it almost copy and pasteable, and they can just put their own spin on it or add their top and tail on it or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of one example.
And can you give us an actual real example?
Yeah, so for the newsjacking one, I'll give you an example. So an example is of one of those is that I think this is I'm trying to think of our specific ones, but let me give you an example of. I should really come up. We've got a bunch of them. I should really remember those now. And yeah, we should get Jake on the channel and he'll be able to tell you all the ones that we've done recently.
I put you on the spot. I didn't tell you I was going to ask this, but I thought you would have one like an example.
I should have one handy, but yeah, my brain is fried today. So
okay, it's like a warm up. I know you're actually doing a live stream after this, so that'll go smoother since we struggled through this. Well,
yeah,
you did give the example of like the EV, the electric vehicles, and gas prices. So,
I've got. Let me give you one. So there's a guy, a politician, Matt Hancock in the UK. So he's he's a very controversial kind of politician. So he's gone into I'm a Celebrity recently, but he's controversial because he kind of got I can't think of the word, but he was off with some other woman that wasn't his wife, and got caught in that kind of affair. So and now he's almost like the bad boy politician in the UK. So he's gone into I'm a Celebrity, and the piece that we did on that was based on his social media following, how much could he expect or how much could he expect his following to increase as well, whilst being in I'm a Celebrity, and how much could he monetize that following once he leaves the jungle, essentially. So, so that was a piece that kind of got picked up by a bunch of like big, especially UK-based newspapers. Because we had a UK kind of based site that we were working on.
So you pitched the story. Where does the link go back to?
Yeah, good question. So, so quite often people think about digital PR. It just goes back to the homepage. You're just referring to the company. So, with all of our pitches, we say, can you please, this data was put together by our customer, our client. Can you please, give them credit for the work, and they'll put it back, and you can, that would be your homepage. But given that we're niche site builders, like we don't necessarily care about like the vanity numbers, the number of impressions of the eyeballs that people got in front of. We care more about like traffic, income, keyword rankings, and that kind of stuff. So the way that we position the service now is that we look at your site, we do some analysis on your site, and kind of work out where the biggest opportunities are. So what topics would really benefit from an influx of high authority links to improve the rankings? Where's the opportunity in terms of, what topics do we think can generate more traffic than they're generating today? So we tend to run these digital PR services as a campaign, as a 3-month campaign. So you run it for 3 months, and we'll just target one topic silo in that time, in the effort to increase and boost ranking. So then we're actually kind of linking kind of to inner pages as well. And we'll write potentially an article as we have, we'll get people to link to like expert pieces that are on our client site that the journalists can link to, essentially.
Okay.
Or if it's the data project, yeah.
And then do you sort of embed it in the copy that you send over, or do you say, hey, the client did this stuff, we want the link to go here? Like, how do you ensure the link goes to where you intend?
We just ask straight out for it to go there. I mean, sometimes they won't link at all. Sometimes they'll link to just the homepage. We can try and get those things. We try and get those things changed, but generally, if we ask for it, and we've fed the journalists a good story, they're quite happy to give credit for that.
Okay. And then any issues, and it makes sense, right? Like you've done the work for them, and they'll spice it up or whatever they need to do. So they would like want to reciprocate and, give you the link where you're asking. And have you run into any issues, right? Like trying to get a link to a money page, right? Are they going to like, It may not be directly related to the story, or do you try to make it directly related to the story?
Yes, it's directly related to the story, for sure. But then we use internal linking to power up that kind of entire silo of work. So we'll get the link juice passed through kind of that way, in a similar way to like what you would with Shotgun, the
Okay.
skyscraper piece.
So you do the best you can. You make it related so the reporter doesn't think, oh, they're just trying to get a link. I mean, they know you're just trying to get a link, probably, but they can put the link in there knowing that it actually adds a good reference and resource to the story.
They definitely know, like it's we scratch your back and you scratch out type exercise now. But they know if you're feeding them good stories, they're happy. They're happy. So.
Okay. And how do you determine that this? We're going to move on to the second type, right? So the data stuff that you're going to put together, right? So you put together a piece, maybe you do a little bit more research. How do you determine like what to focus on? Since conceivably it may take a little while to write the piece, gather the data, so there's a lot more upfront work. So how do you figure out what to target?
Yeah, so it really is like a brainstorming session amongst the team. So the team will get together and they'll come up with ideas for stories or ideas for places to research for that specific customer to come up with kind of ideas. So it really is like an ideation exercise where everyone kind of chips in and then someone goes away and tries to do a little bit more research into those.
Okay. And I suspect you would, look at stories that have already been covered in the past and maybe try to combine a couple ideas or, tie it to some other piece. So there's like unique information, like a new spin on an old story, right? Something like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that all comes into the research. So like what kind of stories have taken off well within that niche before? What are the journalists like writing about in that niche? So yeah, for sure, that's all part of the research.
All right. So you guys tested this for a little while before you rolled it out. What mistakes did you guys make that you needed to change after you tried to do this? Anything ring a bell? Anything that people that you learned along the way?
No, so what I'll say is that we didn't do it for ourselves, right? So Adam and I have never done digital PR. We didn't try to pretend to do digital PR. We didn't, we understand the concept of it, and we did more digging to understand like how could we make this into a service. How can we get these links? We want these links, like, and this is all comes around to all the Google updates that we've been getting lately. And a lot of content sites have been hit like over that time. Obviously, it's a zero sum thing, so some gain, some are hit. But how can we gain more trust in the eyes of Google to avoid that kind of getting hit by Google, but also to elevate us amongst competitors? So that actually it's really hard for them to tomb raid us or to overtake us because we've got these really high quality links. So we brought in two guys, Jake and Jack, and they've been doing digital PR for 11 years. So they've got all of the experience. They've literally been working on the ground doing this. Jake for 7, and then that was Jack's been doing 4, and it was 11 combined, and Jake was 7. So and they've been working as a team for a long period of time. So they've already made all the mistakes. They already know how to do it. We just brought them in to kind of help us get it off the ground and deliver it.
Got it. So you guys didn't make any mistakes because you just hired people that knew how to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I think what's a bit different is our pricing structure because we've priced it at a level that works for niche site owners, and we guarantee a certain number of links. Although that's really pessimistic because, like I said before, we know that we can easily achieve the number of links we guarantee, basically, and then it should be more on top of that for every campaign.
Okay, and one thing that we haven't talked about yet, which we'll talk about it, but I think I know the answer. So one thing is like you need to have a network, people that work in the industry or at the places you want to get the links. Yeah. Jake and Jack, they already had contacts because they've been doing this for a while, right?
Yep.
So, that introduces a problem, right? So if someone wants to do this on their own, they have to figure out how to, build a relationship, find the reporters that cover it, which is not impossible, right? Like you can go to Twitter and build a relationship with someone and, it could be a long-term thing, but, technically you can do it. So that's the question. Like, did Jake and Jack
How
already
not?
have their
Yeah,
contacts?
they do. They do for sure. But also, we buy a media database. This is one thing that's very prohibitive, and another reason why niche site owners don't do it, because it costs thousands of dollars to get access to one of these databases. They're called like Muckrack or Cision, or Roxhill. So these are all very expensive databases. So that's how we kind of find it. If you want to do it manually, you can. You can go to a you can go to a newspaper, a publication that you want to get in and see who the writers are for that. You can then kind of hit them up on social media or connect with them on social media. There's a hashtag called journo requests as well, which is a bit like a Haro, where people will put out a request for an expert in a certain area. So if you use tools, something like TweetDeck or Hootsuite, something like that, you can set up a stream, I think it's called, for searching on that hashtag journo requests, but then also adding some keywords. So if you're in the gardening niche, you can do journo requests and gardening, and journo requests, I don't know, and flowers and planting or whatever else is in the niche, so that otherwise if you just search on journo requests, you'll see thousands every day. So you just want to narrow it down for your niche. You can kind of do that kind of thing. So you can build your list. It's just manual at that point if you don't have access to a database.
Got it. Okay, cool. Any other details about the service or the process that people should think about?
No, I guess the only thing is it's timely. So it's timely, time consuming, and about building relationships. But the timely thing really matters, especially for the reactive campaigns. Those are things you've got to be there. You've got to be jumping on it. If you're reacting to a story that was 2 or 3 days ago, you're probably too late. So I think that was kind of something that's important.
Gotcha. All right. Very cool. And, people could check out the service or some details that people can investigate a little further to understand how it works. And you mentioned usually you try to do like a 3-month commitment, but it's paid monthly. Is that the deal?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And it could go on longer, right? But 3 months is kind of the minimum.
That's right. Yeah. So you get based on our Black Friday offers that we've got at the moment, you kind of if you kind of commit up front to one. So we try to describe it by campaigns. So do you want to buy 1 campaign, 2 campaigns, 3 campaigns? And that effectively is like 3, 6 or 9 months essentially. But yeah, as I said, we work at powering up different silos of the site. So if you've got multiple silos that you want for us to do, then you might want to run multiple campaigns to improve the rankings, all of those, and improve the overall authority of the site, right?
Perfect. Awesome. Well, people can, follow the link in the description, in the show notes to head over. And this is coming out on Thanksgiving, so there will be Black Friday deals. How long do the deals run through here?
They run through to the end of Cyber Monday week, so that Friday.
Okay, so the next,
it's like 3rd of December, something like that.
Okay, cool. So you could follow the link and head over to Niche Website Builders. And I'm an affiliate, so I'd get a commission if you sign up, which I appreciate. And then if you're listening to this in the future, you still can get a discount via my affiliate link and discount code. So, you could follow the same link and get over there and you'll be good to go. Mark, anything else before we wrap it up?
No, all good. Thanks, Doug.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, Doug.